Coming up on an exciting new episode of That Was a Show. The Crew was a show. Before he found success with Desperate Housewives, Mark Cherry co-created this workplace/hangout/romcom sitcom about hot young flight attendants based in Miami. It was a sufficiently horny romp for the 90s Fox lineup, but didn't quite land the same pop culture impact as Friends or Living Single. Brynn, Aaron, and Barry book a flight on this fictional airline to discuss the many love triangles and polo shirts in primary colors in this forgotten sitcom. There's also a tangent about tennis bracelets and a couple of cat cameos. Buckle in and prepare for takeoff. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince, but those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show?
That was a show?
The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Byrne,
Aaron Yeger,
And Andrew Helmer as Barry.
a Radio Gizmo production.
I would love a sparkling water sponsor. That's
the goal.
That's the absolute goal. Anybody who can like
just give us cases and cases of
Yeah,
fancy,
I'll tell you right
pretentious
now,
sparkling water.
my sparkling water budget is it's way too high for my income level.
Yeah. Any business out there that turns a liquid fizzy, if you ship us cases of your product, we will promote it. No financial commitment required other than just mountains of free product.
Absolutely, 100%. Do you guys have a Soda Stream?
We do.
We do. And
Does it ever get used?
Yes.
I'm worried. Yeah.
However, we struggle to make the effort to replace our tanks when they run out.
Sure.
So we'll go like months without having it because we just forget.
So we'll go
constantly.
a month using it every day.
Yeah.
And then like 2 or 3 months not using it at all because we just haven't
refilled it. So would you say one of those tanks lasts you about a month?
No.
Oh, hey, the microphones are on.
Yeah.
Wow, episode 60.
Episode 60.
Wow, it's crazy, guys. Congrats to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
we're amazing.
What's the 60th anniversary? Is that like canned fish? Is that what you're supposed to give for
as a gift? I don't know.
Or carbonated beverages?
You know what's so sad is millennials are getting married so late in life that they'll never experience a 60th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it was already a pretty tough one to hit.
I know.
For a lot of folks.
I feel like my grandparents almost made it to 50. And then my grandpa died. But yeah, I feel like back in the day when people got married at age 20, Do you
want to know what the traditional gift for 60th anniversary is?
What is it?
Please.
Both traditional and modern. The gift for the 60th anniversary is diamond.
Ooh.
Fuck off, De Beers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, but what if you actually go longer than 60? 65 is blue sapphire, 70th is platinum.
Yeah.
And it goes up from there.
So wait, okay, so the
what
only people
80-year-old really is desiring diamonds in their life?
But
I mean,
oh, you know what the highest is? The highest in the traditional list is 80th anniversary, which there cannot be many of those. But it's funny because just to backtrack, you're going I'm just going to list them quickly. Silver, pearl, coral, ruby, sapphire, things like that, right? 70th, platinum. 80th, oak.
That's funny.
It's sturdy.
80th,
It's very sturdy.
So an 80th is possible if you get married at age 20 and you Yeah, and you
both live to 100.
to 100.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and yeah.
It
100
is
years ago,
possible.
you might have, you could have even gotten in a few years before 20 and gotten away with it. All right. Okay. So there you go, everybody.
Okay.
There you go, everybody
really
out there.
Important stuff for us to discuss.
So anybody out there in the audience celebrating their own 60th anniversary, please
Cheers
hit
to
us up.
you.
Cheers to you.
cheers.
No one who is in that milestone is listening to this. But
And probably not.
If you are, find a better way to celebrate because it's a very impressive life.
Yeah,
exactly.
And if anyone out there wants to send us diamonds as a congratulations for our 60th, that would be acceptable.
Yeah, I'd take the diamonds. But not blood diamonds. Make sure they're very ethical diamonds.
Ethical diamonds.
Hey, the lab created ones. They're just as nice.
Yeah, hell, we'll even accept lab created.
Yeah.
But there are 3 of us, so you would need to triple up on any gift. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So
each of us needs a diamond.
I'm thinking those tennis bracelets that in the sitcoms, the husband would get the wife a diamond tennis bracelet.
Yes.
What was with the tennis bracelet?
You can't. This is the thing. You can't wear them anywhere.
No.
You know what I mean?
How
They're
many
way too
balls
fancy.
are you going to?
Yeah, they're way too fancy. They're way too it's impractical. And I think Jim got one for Pam on The Office. I was like, really? Pam Beasley's gonna be wearing a fucking
illuminate
tennis
me here.
bracelet?
What is a tennis bracelet? I mean, I know the trope,
I don't know
but
why
what
it's
is it?
called that, but it's like basically one of those bracelets where it's like a string of gems. Like it's like a fancy bracelet.
Yeah, so I'm
I'm
looking this up. According to Tiffany's website, an iconic design that was originally sported by players on the court, the tennis bracelet has become an elegant style staple. So apparently,
I can't even
tennis
afford a
players
watch.
would wear these while playing tennis.
Why? How does that work?
Show them off at the country club.
I guess. But it's like, it's like something where there's like multiple
It's
gems
all the way around. It's
set around like a bracelet. Like it's fancy. It's like very, I think I had a very fake like crystal one when I was like a kid that I wore to a wedding once or something.
Yeah.
I might still have it, but it's like looks very fake. It's like not nice. So that's the thing. It's like it's only worth having if it's like real and you would never want to wear it.
No. Well, the cheapest traditional tennis bracelet design with diamonds on Tiffany's website, this is Canadian dollars, is $28,400.
Yeah.
So Jim Halpert just popped out there. I mean, he
probably didn't buy it from Tiffany. It was
he
probably
was often
some
top salesman, I guess. So.
It was some like Pittsburgh or frickin'
Pennsylvania.
Scranton, like jeweler that was like off brand. It wasn't Tiffany.
Yeah. Plus, let's be honest, cost of living there was pretty low.
They could buy all kinds of tennis bracelets because their mortgage payments were nothing.
I like to assume Dwight had a guy.
Yeah. Dwight could surely have a guy.
And like when the light hit it just right, you can see that it was just beats had been coated in a hard resin.
Yeah.
Welcome to That Was a Show, everyone.
Well, I suppose without further ado, we should get into today's episode.
That was quite enough ado.
Yeah. It was a lot of ado.
Much ado.
Yeah.
Much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
The crew.
Let's talk about it.
I'm going to just start with a disambiguation, which is the term used on Wikipedia, because if you search the crew, the most likely thing to come up is going to be the 2021 series starring Kevin James, where he plays a NASCAR crew chief. I assure you, that is not the show that we are reviewing. We are not reviewing, again, to be clear, we are not reviewing the Kevin James helmed NASCAR themed 2021 modern show. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a show from 1995. So The Crew ran on Fox from August 31st, 1995 to June 30th, 1996, lasting one season with a total of 21 episodes. It's about flight attendants working for the fictional Regency Airlines with their hub based in Miami, Florida. Jess, played by Rose Jackson, and Maggie, played by Kristen Bauer, are both flight attendants and also roommates. Paul, who is played by David Burke, and Randy, by Charles Eston, are also flight attendants and close friends. Their supervisor is Lenora, played by Christine Estabrook. Also in the mix is Mac, played by Dondre Whitfield, who runs the little bar/restaurant called Mambo Mambo, where everyone hangs out, and Captain Rex Parker, played by Lane Davies. Right from the get-go, there are intense will they or won't they's between Jess and Mac, and between Lenora and Captain Parker. The series has 4 creators. There's Mark Cherry, who's best known as the creator of Desperate Housewives, and got his start writing and producing for the Golden Girls. There's John Party and Joey Murphy, also best known for Desperate Housewives, and Jamie Wooten, who I couldn't find any information about, but perhaps also worked on Desperate Housewives. There isn't that much more to say, other than this was a workplace comedy set in a pretty novel location with a fair bit of romance. So there you have it. I'm going to go straight into a description of the pilot/first episode, which we reviewed. It is called The New Pilot, literally. Because it's a pilot for the show, and in the episode, the airline gets a new pilot. So I guess that's kind of a clever title. Okay, so we open on the most mid-90s title sequence we have seen so far to date.
Yeah, it's like aggressively 90s.
The music, camera angles, color tinting, font choices, all of it seems to be just absolutely begging young people at the time to watch the show.
Yeah.
Like, are you wearing jeans and riding a skateboard? Please watch this show. We're young and hip and relevant. Please, we're begging you watch this show.
It's like a Dr. Pepper commercial.
Yes. We meet a bunch of flight attendants and their supervisor in some sort of office room at the airport. Smarmy banter is exchanged. Everyone is young and hot. The episode has a few connected plot lines. After a brief opening joke scene set inside an airplane, we spend the rest of the episode in the airport, bar, and Jess and Maggie's apartment. Jess is newly single, and Mac asks her out. Apparently, they've had some ongoing flirtation for a long time, but she's reluctant and would rather remain friends. Maggie tries to convince Jess to go out with Mac, and eventually intervenes to set them up on a date, which pisses Jess right off. Captain Rex Parker joins the airline. He is a classically handsome pilot type. Paul assesses his sexual orientation and determines that Rex is most likely straight. Thus, Lenora is immediately smitten with him. And that's it for the pilot.
Okay. I will say, look, it gave me Friends vibes. Like, it's definitely, like, meant to appeal to young people. It's got that whole thing of it's soapy, but it's a sitcom at the same time. Like, I kind of get the appeal of the characters, and the actors were all great. Like, it was, like, a great cast. Like, I was kind of invested in their relationships. But I just found that the comedy, like, of the show wasn't quite there. Like, there were some funny bits, but it was, like, a little bit, like, it was, like, just, like, a little bit flat. Mind you, if it had the chance to build, it might have gotten to the level that, like, something like Friends could have reached.
Maybe. Yeah, I kind of liked the cast. It was actually a pretty diverse cast for the time, which is not a high bar in 1995, but pretty good for the time. The setting is kind of interesting. I found some lines funny, but they were funny in kind of a predictable way. Yeah. So, like, maybe, though, if I'm, like, really trying to put myself in the headspace of 1995, at the time, I probably would have found it funnier than I do now. So I do think that this show is pretty dated, but maybe, like, at the time it was, like, pretty okay. It's you got your typical Fox edginess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's chock full of Fox edginess. It really reminds me of a very certain era of television. That would carry basically throughout the latter half of the 90s.
Yeah.
and Fox was pretty dominant in that area where it was just everything was just slightly edgier than what was going on say over on NBC,
right?
Or way edgier than anything that was going on CBS.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I'm watching it and I was like, oh, this is a really novel premise. It's very interesting. And then I was like, oh, right, wings.
Yeah, it's true. It's just a different aspect of the airline environment. Yeah.
It's just like it has so little interest in being about that.
Yeah,
about being about like the airline itself, which is fine. I mean, it's just an excuse to hang your thing on, right?
Yeah.
But like, I felt like it was extra lazy in how little it seemed to really be interested in telling stories about that.
Well, yeah. Sorry. Even their uniforms didn't look like flight attendant uniforms.
No, glad you brought that up. And they all could you call it a uniform, or were they just like, yeah, wear whatever golf shirt you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
They all
doesn't matter the color.
Yes. They all had, it sort of seemed like a set color palette of primary colors of like golf shirts, but with shorts.
Well, these weird
and
half
skirts.
It was like a half apron, half shorts or skirt.
Yeah, it was so weird.
It seemed more like something.
Like they worked at a sports bar or something.
I was literally just going to say,
an airline.
they were they had a restaurant and bar type of uniform vibe.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Khaki shorts, and like just every single one of them wore like a different color shirt, which was like, I was like, I don't know, like, is there some kind of like Star Trek thing going on? Am I supposed to figure out like everybody's ranking? Yeah.
No, that's so funny. Yeah, that's so true.
Funny.
As far as the humor goes, like, I feel like it's a rare bit for me where like I found some of especially some of the gay jokes to be really, really tone deaf and like even more so than I was expecting. Most of them come from the one character, their supervisor, Lenora.
Oh yeah, she was super homophobic. Like
she was like
there were some
crazy
rough
homophobic
jokes. And
and she's a foil to them, but also the show is on her side.
That's the problem.
That's
the problem.
Yeah, it was a lot of jokes where the punchline was she was commenting on how something's illegal.
Yeah,
like some sort of
like essentially
behavior.
Being essentially implying that being gay or some aspect of that would be illegal in certain number of states. The thing was that to me, it's like the character Paul, who is openly gay, and there actually was, to me, it was a kind of nice scene when he tells a brief story to his friends about coming out, or his dad finding out that he was gay and his dad reacting very poorly, but it was actually like played as an interesting moment between friends. Like there was a level of sincerity to that scene. So it's kind of like, on the one hand, the Paul character seems like a decent component to the show. And then on the other hand, the Lenora character, it's like, okay, if their point was the joke is that in the world there are people that are that homophobic, fine, but they have to be a true villain character. And that's not how they played her, and it wasn't done well.
And I think it's just more like just almost a sad mirror to 1995, where you were just like, they were just like, you just had to casually put up with that shit from bigots. Yeah. Where like, not that you don't to an extent now, but like, I don't know. It's just so weird to see a character like that on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if the point of her character was to be a bigot type, they did not land that plane, to use a direct metaphor, well. Like they did not think that through.
No,
because if the point was that
it was just laid on very thick. Everything
laid on thick, and then since we watched the first episode and the last episode, I remember just distinctly being like, "Holy shit, she's still doing this shit 21 episodes later."
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like for the 90s, maybe it was like maybe it was kind of like groundbreaking to even talk about these things openly and not have it, like in terms of the
God, that's
Paul
so
character
sad and
talk
so
about
true.
himself. I know. It must have been. It must have been because it was almost like a weird, like the way things were presented in the scene. It was almost like gay people 101. Like it was like the way he was like talking about his life with his friends, and it's like, we know, like
we had a gaydar joke. We had
like it was like so it was very jarring to see that. But
it is worth noting that Mark Cherry, the main creator of the show,
so it's coming.
Is gay.
So it's coming from his experience. But probably the network was like, "You're gonna have to explain all of this to the straight people."
That was something that is something that occurred to me like midway through, as I was like, I think Mark Cherry was gay, actually.
Yeah. So the only reason why, when I was watching it, because I had done that research early on, because I read this one thing on his like Wikipedia where it says, Mark, but here's the interesting thing, and here's why it makes sense that he would have been developing shows at Fox. Mark Cherry was described in Newsweek in 2007 as a somewhat conservative gay Republican.
What?
But Fox, but Fox, the TV network, isn't conservative.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, when you look at the way that the characters were filtered through whatever network machinations yielded this, and apparently he renounced that political allegiance the moment Mr. Orange Jumpsuit ran for president.
Okay.
But until, the mid 2010s, he was a Republican. So anyway, that's a little context there. But back to
that does track with what I remember about Desperate Housewives.
True. That show had a lot of weird Republican vibes to it. Yeah. Anyway,
back to our picking apart the episode. You know how I usually complain that when sitcoms make reference to some sort of location or environment, but never bother to go there or spend the money to actually show it. But in this case, they open on an airplane. They've got the airplane set.
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed they didn't return to it.
Well, I would assume that, and good for them for doing it, them having a show, being flight attendants, thank God you at least know that they built an airplane set so they could have some scene set in an airplane.
They probably didn't build it. It was probably one that the studio owned.
Standing
like
set.
A standing, like that.
I mean, my point is, like, if the show, it was probably their standing set, right? Because they probably used it every week.
Yeah,
and it was a fairly okay airplane set.
Yeah.
And
I've seen worse and I've seen better.
And I'm sure they returned to it in most episodes, but I kind of like wanted it to be one of the main sets of the episode. Like, it's kind of like out of 22 minutes, I wanted it to get more than 45 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wanted it to be like the main thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of this plot, an interesting way to do this would have doing every episode would be hard like this, but doing one as a bottle episode and the pilot would be great if we got introduced through all these characters and all these things in a bottle episode set during one flight.
Yeah.
And we got to see their relationships with each other. And we got to see, maybe Lenora has to be there for some reason.
You meet Captain Rex because he's piloting that flight.
And maybe Lenora kind of goes on the flight just as an excuse to be around him. Like, they could have done it. Yeah,
there you go.
She there's your joke. She says like, it's customary for like me to go on your inaugural
on your first
flight.
Inaugural, yeah. And then someone else who was scheduled to be on the flight, she bumps them. And then if you really wanted a B story that set off the plane, you could choose one character who got bumped from the flight for her to take their place.
Sure, we got to figure out what Mac's up to.
Yeah, exactly. He got to bring Mac into the mix.
So the other character who gets bumped from the flight is hanging out at the bar the whole episode.
Yeah,
talking to
Which
Mac.
I love that. So we spent so much time in these 2 episodes in this bar restaurant, Mambo, which, come on, guys. Where was it? Like, was this close to the airport? Why?
Right.
Normally, I don't care why. Normally, I don't care why.
I know, but you wanted to know.
Something is a central hangout. But in this case, I'm like, you guys all hang out there.
As I was writing the description, I was trying to figure out, is this bar in the airport or near the airport or just in Miami? And I couldn't figure it out. There was no clear, distinctive sign as to where.
Yeah.
Which would have been useful context. It would have made more sense if it was an airport bar.
Yeah.
And like you knew it was an airport bar and the way
maybe we were really trying to get away from wings.
Yeah.
I know.
I feel like Miami was like a popular setting back in the 90s.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know why I know that you're right, but yes.
Well, the Golden Girls is set in Miami.
Sure.
I feel like there's other ones, but
I just feel like people talked about Miami
now.
a lot.
Yeah.
Wasn't Bad Boys in Miami?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I've never seen Bad Boys.
Oh.
No?
No.
I don't know why I felt like we saw Bad Boys 2 together.
Oh, maybe we did.
Which, if it makes you feel better, I haven't seen the first Bad Boys, and I hadn't then either, and I won't, and I still haven't. So
I feel like that might have been one of those nights.
We just saw everything.
Fox shows are so horny.
Yeah, they are. Everyone's
there was a lot of hooting and hollering going on in this, and this seemed like the prime time of, like Fox's audiences. I would say Married with Children was probably the most well known, but the Fox's audiences were very well known for the woo woo and all the lot of hooting and hollering going on Martin. Yeah, which I don't know why, but I watched a whole bunch of Martin in the 90s.
Yeah,
and The Simpsons love to make fun of the Fox audiences.
I'll say that I liked Maggie and Jess's dynamic. They were kind of an odd pairing of friends. Like, they were sort of supportive of each other, but they seemed to get annoyed with each other really easily.
Realistically so, yeah.
Realistically so.
Yeah, I liked them as a pairing, and overall,
I liked Randy and...
They were a good pairing, too.
God, who's
Randy
Dave
and
Burke's
Paul.
character? Randy and Paul.
Yeah.
I really liked the pairing of this kind of macho womanizer type character with kind of the funnier, shy gay character, and I really liked that they had they were best friends and had a great relationship. I liked that because it's not
that was progressive for the 90s.
Yeah,
agreed. Very
because you wouldn't really show a straight guy and a gay guy being best friends on screen, even though that is, even back in the 90s, that would have been a reality. Like, lots of people are friends with, each other.
So,
but it was. I thought it was cool to show that they had this close relationship and that. Randy wasn't homophobic or threatened, at all.
It was not a thing between them.
Even though he was
which is what made
straight.
the Lenora, which is what made the Lenora stuff really stand out for me, because I was like, on one hand, this show is showing a very accepting group of characters, and on the other hand, they just have this asshole who just keeps saying horrible shit to this one character, and nobody says anything to her.
They probably had a note somebody has to be homophobic. Somebody has to. So they were like, okay, let's make the boss homophobic.
Yeah.
And, I think the idea with her is karma gets her every time. She's an asshole and she sort of gets her comeuppance. And I guess we'll get to the finale at some point. But I think she gets her comeuppance in the finale in a very confusing way.
We'll get to the finale in a minute.
Are you referring to the closing credits for the finale?
Well, but that's it's. I have a lot of questions about that finale.
It's a weird.
Let's get it. Let's get in there.
Let's get into it. Why not? Let's launch into it.
Okay. So I'm just gonna say off the top, I did not enjoy writing the description for this episode.
Okay.
Just feel your way through it, man.
Because it's, on the one hand, very complicated, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, pretty boring. So
there were so many love triangles.
There was
many.
All the love triangles possible.
So
anyway,
many,
Aaron,
so
you explain.
many.
Go
I had
for
to
it.
dramatic
watch-
cliffhangers.
I know.
Yeah.
I had to watch
That
this.
never get resolved.
I had to watch this episode twice just to make some sense of it. So the finale is titled "The Man We Love," and I think I should also point out that this is the season finale. I'm not sure they knew the series was ending at the time that they made this episode.
No way in hell.
They tacked that thing on the
And they
end.
tacked
Okay,
the
but
we'll get
into
to that.
Yeah.
They tacked the thing on the end that suggests that it might have been a last minute pivot when they found out they got canceled. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So it begins with previously on the crew. So obviously it's a continuation of some plots that happened that we did not watch that came in the previous episode. And we learn that Jess's ex, Darnell, suddenly re-entered her life. But we also learn that she's been dating Mac and they're a couple. Mac witnesses Darnell kissing Jess, and even though she's not necessarily into it, he doesn't know that, thus jealousy ensues. Then we learn that Lenora has been dating Captain Rex, and he proposed to her. And a tropical storm is about to hit Miami. And Maggie was seeing some guy named Ted, but he apparently turned out to be married. So now we're off to the races. The tropical storm hits. Lenora is in a very good mood, practically giddy, on account of the handsome pilot asking her to marry him. Mac disappears and Jess can't find him. Maggie and Randy have a moment and they almost kiss. They don't, but there's a romantic tension there. We then see each of them alone have a conversation with themselves, debating the merits of getting involved with each other romantically. Cut to Paul catching them in bed together. Jess finds Mac and he explains what he saw. She tries to convince him it meant nothing, but apparently there's more to it. They've been dating 10 months and she's been afraid to commit to a serious relationship and he's reaching a breaking point. So by this point, at the end of the season, it's less a workplace comedy and more a romantic comedy verging on total soap opera. Just as Maggie and Randy solidify their intense feelings for each other, Ted leaves a phone message, and apparently he left his wife for her. Uh-oh. And then, Lenore and Captain Rex are at the hospital visiting her mother.
This is wild.
And then Rex spots a woman there who is apparently his wife, who he thought was dead but might be alive. And Jess discovers a note from Mac that he's breaking up with her because he can't wait for her to figure out what she wants. So it is a very, very soap opera ending indeed.
This is like Friends dialed up to 11.
It is. Like the whole, someone they thought was dead is alive.
Yeah.
That's such a soap opera trope.
That's a true soap opera trope.
From that era. It's so weird. And I guess maybe they were leaning into that. And the note, that is a 90s sitcom trope. We saw that in a few shows we've covered, but the first one that comes to mind is Davis Rules. There's
right, when they wrote her off between episodes.
Oh, right.
And Love and War. So there's always a note where it's I can't do this anymore, and they leave town, and it's does that really happen? There's some sort of romantic complication, so the solution is just to move away.
Do you know how fucking hard it is to move and move your whole life?
I know.
And
they make it look so easy.
He owned that bar.
Yeah. It's they make it look so easy on a sitcom, and a 90s sitcom, to just take off and smoke bomb out of your life when your relationship doesn't work out. It makes no sense.
So I'll say this one was at least intended as a cliffhanger where I feel like the Mac character would be back in the next episode.
Yeah.
Whereas what we've usually seen is we usually see this play out in a way where an actor has been let go or has quit between seasons.
Yeah.
And they've have to scramble to figure out a way to explain where that person went. This is the first time I've ever seen you could have just had a scene.
Yeah.
He was employed by this production. He was still available to shoot I'm Leaving,
It's
So
weird.
He was there for the episode. You had him on on the soundstage lot.
Yeah.
Like,
and then, also another great trope is exposition through voicemail tape. Being overheard by characters.
Yep.
That's a huge trope. That was like, they loved that in the 90s. That was like a device.
It must be so weird for like younger kids to see stuff like this. And like, because they, you just have voicemail on your phone, and B, nobody really leaves them anyway. But like, it was such a wild thing that like people would leave messages and it would just be playing out loud. It would just be playing out loud in the room. And like, this is how answering machines work. If somebody left a message, you could hear it in the room. Yeah. But like, how weird is that?
So weird.
Seinfeld, of course, had many plots involving answering machines. And in the mid-90s, the answering machine with the tape there was obviously like legitimately a thing that everyone used. But like when Seinfeld did an answering machine plot, they went really absurd and so hard into it. Like they just did crazy things that are not like realistic situations. One of my notes, though, as long as we're talking about tropes, is what should we call the trope where people are all stuck inside somewhere because of a storm?
Yeah, that is
because a lot of shows did that
happened
too.
A lot. Like there were, I feel like.
Is this like, pre-El Nino? I feel like
in the 90s, I don't know why I feel this way. Maybe I'm completely off base, but I feel like there were a lot of hurricanes in the 90s. And so they were trying to, like, naturally, if they set a show in a locale where there's hurricanes, they had to have a hurricane.
Well, I think there's still just as many, if not more, hurricanes. But I don't think
it was just more of a novel thing then, and
maybe
less of a.
An everyday occurrence with climate
destroying communities on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So by the end of the season, all the characters have these intense romantic entanglements, except Paul. So
I noticed that.
While it was nice to have this openly gay character, and it seemed like it was leading to something good in the pilot, other than the Lenore thing, it's disappointing that he seems to be
have that romantic
starkly the only one who doesn't have a romantic plot in this episode.
And he's literally just there to be the shoulder for everyone else to cry on and the confidant.
Yes, that is very true.
It's like, oh, that sucks. Like the whole, like it would have been so much more satisfying if he had, mind you, they could have had some sort of plot.
We don't know that he didn't date someone in an episode.
Yeah, I'm sure
just
they got
this
there.
Pivotal episode we watched, I guess.
There's some interesting bits to the Paul character in that he does sort of go against the stereotypical sitcom gay character in that he is not overly promiscuous as 90s TV shows love to make their gay characters. He was a very introspective and like he makes remarks about not having a very he's very shy and he doesn't seem to have a lot of connections with people. Which in a more serious show would be an interesting thing to look at. But in this, you're like, I just want to see him have the same opportunities as everybody else. So it's a weird,
his straight friend is the one who's super promiscuous and he's counseling the straight friend on like how to have more sort of successful, deeper romantic connections with people. And it's like, okay, I can see in isolation how that's an interesting flip on the stereotypes that were common at the time. But at the end of the day, I'm just watching this episode and seeing a season of a show ending where every single character has an intense romantic entanglement except for him.
Except for Paul,
And where the show is not talking, like, okay, obviously like a storm is coming, so there's no flights or whatever. But like in this episode, there's nothing on the airplane. There's nothing about air travel. It's just a soap opera. It's just the romantic plots. There's nothing else going. With the tropical
storm, I feel like there's some pretty good dramatic stuff you could mine from an airline. In a tropical storm, there are more interesting things to do.
Many many more interesting things to do. What with if lots of flights have been canceled and you can't show anyone flying, why isn't the airport like packed full of people who are stuck there? Or like, there's a million things that you could have done. But at this point, it's not a workplace comedy. It's just a soap opera.
Well, at this point, it is. Brynn was very good in bringing it up very early. It is very reminiscent of Friends in the way the thing is. But what Friends would realize is that all of the characters on Friends had dramatic storylines that would run throughout the show. They didn't cram them all into one episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if there was like one or two, if Ross and Rachel were having a heavy episode, the rest of them weren't.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a balance to it because it was still a comedy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How I Met Your Mother, I remember, maybe a little bit more would have maybe two serious things going on, but there would still not be every single character going through dramatic things every second of it. And I always get so annoyed. I know this is so weird, but like I just get annoyed with the audacity of a show that probably wasn't doing very well, doing a whole bunch of like dramatic cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Because like, I get like, acting like, you're successful will breed success. But, what if and actually there were fans of this show because, when I looked it up online, I kept seeing like people like with the reviews of people who'd watched the show and they loved it. So I was like, don't leave your audience hanging that hard when you're almost assuredly going to get canceled.
So I have a theory here that's just coming together in my head. So I'm just thinking out loud. But like, remember when we reviewed Sports Night and we were talking about how like it was a sitcom, but there were a lot of non-sitcom-y things happening there. And the whole time we're thinking like Aaron Sorkin maybe wanted to do an hour-long drama, but he was at a stage in his career where no one was going to give him that budget and sitcoms were getting greenlit left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So he got a chance to do a sitcom, but he tried to kind of wedge some hour drama elements into a half-hour comedy, like a square peg into a round hole. It feels like, okay, knowing that Mark Cherry goes on to do Desperate Housewives, which was hugely successful, and that's the thing that he's known for, it feels like in this show, and maybe it wasn't just him, maybe there were other people involved in these decisions as well, but it feels like they were trying to squeeze more dramatic serialization into a comedy than was typical at the time. And most sitcoms, like multicam sitcoms, you'd expect, you don't expect like all these cliffhangers and multi-part plot lines. You kind of expect to be able to jump, especially in season 1. If you're a new audience, like what if the first episode you watch is like in the middle of the season and then you have just like no idea what's going on? Like these shows were, I think less that they were interested in making a drama and more they were following a successful method that was happening at the time, right? Friends really did bring and don't get me wrong, Cheers, Frasier, MASH, all of these things really trafficked in adding dramatic elements into their shows. But Friends really, really did hit it big by having these romantic storylines be what brought people back. They did, but not yet in 95.
Absolutely they did. Friends is right off to the races in the first season, man.
Yeah, but in the first season, there's one...
Oh, sure,
will they or won't they?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just saying is that, like, this is what they're doing. They know that what gets people invested and coming back is this relationship thing. The crew doesn't realize that it doesn't need to be every character in every scene, right?
But it wasn't just that it was every character in this episode. It's that there were scenes that were not comedic, really. Like, there were a few scenes.
Plenty of those in Friends, though.
Yeah, but those are earned after 50 episodes of nonstop laughter. Like, there was a lot of working up to that.
No, man, go back,
That's
man.
Very generous saying nonstop laughter.
The first season of Friends is full of it. Like, really, the first season of Friends establishes that tone early on.
I guess I just don't recall there being, well, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like
I think that the Ross and Rachel the big scene, I think that happens at the end of the first season, like that big dramatic scene.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
that was at a point where characters like the other characters in the cast at that point were still all super silly, and none of them had the same sort of dramatic plots.
Yeah.
And like, you know, obviously this is going on too much of a detour, but once Friends became that show where everyone had those romantic things, like once Chandler and Monica got together, I was pretty much out from watching Friends.
Yeah, but no one else was, though.
I know. I'm just saying
that's what really brought the audiences back.
For me, I liked the first few seasons of Friends when there was one clear will they or won't they, and the other four characters were just bonkers silly. And then when it shifted, it's kind of like I loved Frasier until Niles and Daphne hook up, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Literally, when that happened, I was like, no.
But that's the kind of serialization that was selling, right? Like, that's what made these things very highly rated sitcoms, right? People had to see what happened next, and you couldn't wait for it to come back. You know, you couldn't stream it, you couldn't binge it. You had to watch the next episode to find out what happened to these entanglements.
So basically, like they set up all of these cliffhangers, you know, all of these misadventures so that people have to watch next season. But then by the tag, there's this like kind of obnoxious like little tag that is like showing that maybe the series is over.
Yeah.
But so
let me describe it.
Please do, because I found it very, very tasteless.
Well, it's obviously tasteless, but let me describe it. So, as we noted before, is it Lenore or Lenora?
Lenore.
Now I'm forgetting.
Lenora, I believe.
Lenora's mother is in the hospital. She's visiting her mother. Captain Rex is kind of there to like comfort her, or be, you know, they're a couple at this point. And they play a gag, like they kind of, you never see the mother's face or whatever, I don't think. It's kind of, she's kind of like this off-screen character there. But we glean that Lenora doesn't particularly like her mother, and there's jokes about putting her in a home, and like not a good home, like the cheapest one they can find. Mm-hmm. And Rex is like, we'll put her in a great place. I've got money or whatever. I'm a pilot sort of energy. And she's like, I don't care. Let's find the cheapest place we can find. So we get this idea that there's this negative relationship between her and her mother. And there's a joke earlier in the episode where she's by her mother's bedside, and there's one of those like ECG monitors going beep, beep, beep. And then it kind of flatlines, but just for a couple seconds, and then starts beep, beep, beeping again. And then there's a joke where she's like, Mom, don't tease me like that.
Yeah.
Because the joke obviously is that like she doesn't care if she wants her mother to just die or something like that. And her mother kind of knows that. So I guess that's the joke. And I don't know if the mother character was introduced in previous episodes, and we're supposed to know that or find that funny or whatever. But anyway, that's the joke earlier in the episode. So at the end of the episode, after like the credits, there's a final tag where it's just a close-up shot of the ECG monitor, no actors, no faces, and it's just beep, beep, beeping, and then flatlines, and then you hear a voice that I think you're supposed to presume is like a doctor off screen or something, that says, and I wrote this down, looks like we lost another one. And then I took that to be a meta joke.
Yeah.
That
like we
lost the show.
The show. Like the show's been canceled.
The show got canceled. We lost another one. So, and because there's no people in that little tag, and it's just the close-up of that screen, which would have been like super and cheap and fast and easy to shoot, I took that to be like a last-minute addition. Almost like they had shot, they wrote, shot, edited the whole episode. Then they find out like, 3 days before it airs that they've gotten canceled.
Yeah.
Or they're not getting renewed.
Yeah.
So they quickly smash together that little tag and put it on there as like some smarmy meta dig at getting canceled.
So that's an interesting thing. I didn't even remotely read that. So if they did, good for them. I don't think they would have known they were canceled yet.
They might have.
Shows don't get canned like that soon after. I mean, sometimes they do, but it'd be interesting. I'm curious. I tried to Google it while you were talking, and I couldn't find anything. So who cares? Who cares? Is is how I landed on it. I was like, if they did, good for them for pulling a little like fuck you on them. But yeah. I was just thought like it was just a tasteless like, and then the mom died, and we all laughed.
Okay, so I definitely took it to be that the show died, not the mom.
Yeah.
No, the mom. It was the mom dying.
Well,
I definitely had the same interpretation as Aaron. So
okay,
like
great.
It was like a double thing.
That's way less
like,
tasteless.
It was the mom and that.
I prefer your version better. Where it was because I was like, that's a shitty thing to say.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Also, like, even if, let's put it this way, even if they assumed that certainly when they wrote this episode, I think they assumed that the show was going to continue.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of cliffhangers to end a first season of a sitcom on.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of plates spinning in the air. It just feels like a lot of, that sort of circus performer thing, keeping the plates spinning, like a lot of plates spinning in the air. I don't know. Like it was already very serialized for a sitcom at the time, I think. And like, it just felt like they were maybe going a little too far into that. I don't know. My biggest note, aside from the whole, like, the Lenora character is terrible. But my biggest other note is that it just feels like they're spending too much time in like offices and apartments and relationship stuff.
Yeah.
And like not nearly enough time with like airplane and workplace and job stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was going to be the innovative part of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yes. Listeners, you can't see this, but
there's a cat on my
There's a cat in the mix.
There's a cat.
Our cat has also been sort of in the mix in the background being annoying, like getting into trouble. But now Cordy, Barry's cat, was being very cute.
It's also worth mentioning that in the pilot, there's a reference to Jess and Maggie having a cat in their apartment, but we never get to see the cat.
Yeah, we never get to see the cat. That's annoying. It's like, don't tease us with cat references and not show the cat.
Yeah, I agree.
Fail.
I agree.
Fail.
But on the other hand, I'm happier that a cat didn't have to sit through this shit.
Yeah, true story.
Cordy wasn't interested in watching it with me.
Yeah,
so.
She was like, no.
Yeah.
No, Dad.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about how this show seems to be borrowing romantic tropes from Friends.
Yeah.
Brynn, why don't you tell us how close this show is connected to Friends?
Yeah, so I found a few connections. Well, you know what? The three that I noted are 2-degree connections. So there might be more, but this is all I was interested in doing. So the first one is through Rose Jackson, who played Jess. She guest starred on Married with Children. Matt LeBlanc had a recurring role on Married with Children as Vinny Verducci. Matt LeBlanc played Joey Tribbiani on Friends.
Nice.
The next one is also through Married with Children. So Charles Eston, who played Randy, co-starred on Married with Children, or guest starred rather on Married with Children. Matt LeBlanc, as I said previously, had a recurring role on Married with Children as Vinny Verducci. And then he went on to play Joey Tribbiani on Friends. The next one is through Kristen Bauer. So Kristen Bauer, who played Maggie Reynolds on The Crew, was in the film Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, which starred Lisa Kudrow. Lisa Kudrow was Phoebe Buffay on Friends.
Yes, she was.
As everyone knows.
Kristen Bauer von Stratton now, for all those out there.
I really want to watch Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion. That really made me want to watch that.
Also, for anyone listening who hasn't already heard our 2 back-to-back episodes about Vinny Verducci, Matt LeBlanc-based Married with Children spin-off attempts.
Now that's how you use a cat in a sitcom.
Yes.
Top of the Heap.
Mr. Fluffy.
Yeah, Top of the Heap features a great cat. And the other one was Vinny and Bobby?
Vinny and Bobby. And I don't think the cat's in that one. He's on Top of the Heap and he's like the star of the show.
But Matt LeBlanc is great.
Yeah.
Those shows less great.
Yeah.
But listen to those episodes if you haven't already.
Yeah, they're fun.
They're fun.
They're both very fun episodes. One of them is better than the other. I will leave it up to you to decide which.
Yeah. I feel like that could be
I'm just kidding. I don't actually distinctly remember if one of them was better.
There could be a contentious debate out there. There could be some people who are in the Top of the Heap camp and some people who are in the Vinny and Bobby camp.
I seem to recall preferring Vinny and Bobby.
Yeah. Like to talk about or to watch?
To watch.
Yeah, I feel like I liked Top of the Heap better because it was very zany and stupid. But
it was more Married with Children.
It might have been more problematic. Because wasn't there a whole thing with the underage neighbor that, I don't know. There was like a whole weird
thing. I don't remember now.
Anyway, it's been a while. Moving on.
She was played by somebody too.
Moving on to
the show that we're talking about.
The spinoff.
Right. So, what's wild is I didn't even focus on Mark Cherry, but as we've already said numerous times, he had a more successful career after this. He worked on, he created Desperate Housewives, which was like a phenomenon at the time. It was like such a big show that everyone was obsessed with for years. But yeah, as far as the cast,
he's had a show on the air ever since that.
Exactly. Like he's not hurt at all from this show. Like, yes, he made a smarmy. If it was his idea, he made a smarmy comment about losing a show. But after that, he didn't lose many other shows because he really, became a huge success story. So as far as the cast goes, Rose Jackson made a few appearances following her time on the crew, but doesn't really have any credits after 2000. Interestingly, though, she's married to Michael G. Moy, who is one of the showrunners on Married with Children. So that's probably how she got the gig on Married with Children.
Yeah, I just want to say I actually wrote the note that she was my favorite performer in this show.
Yeah.
And that I saw that online and I was kind of disappointed.
I was very disappointed too because I thought she was great. Yeah. I thought she was really, really good.
I would have liked to see her go on to be
do a lot more.
A star of some other better shows.
And then I tried to look her up to see what she's doing now, but it was very difficult because obviously the name Rose Jackson is very, common. So I was like, oh well, whatever. Maybe I'll do a deep dive on that later. Kristen Bauer, she has worked steadily since. She guest starred, soon after this, she guest starred on Seinfeld in a memorable role as Manhands, Jillian. So that was one of Jerry's many girlfriends that he...
She's great. She's
so
always
good.
very...
Yeah. Yeah, she's was a guest star on a lot of popular sitcoms, 90s sitcoms, including Dharma and Greg, Just Shoot Me, and as well as dramas like Chicago Hope, Jag, Desperate Housewives, where she reunited with Mark Cherry, Adam Ruins Everything, and then she was in plenty of movies as well. As I already mentioned, Romeo and Michelle, 50 First Dates, and Nocturnal Animals. So tons and tons more credits.
She was a regular on True Blood for the whole run of it.
Yeah. So David Burke, he appeared and co-starred in many TV shows, including The Tick, Joan of Arcadia, Brothers and Sisters, Chuck, and Nashville. So he, wasn't hurting. Charles Eston, as well, has many notable credits, including Party of Five, the Brian Benben Show, The Office, where he played Josh Porter, the douchey boss at the at the Stanford branch. Yeah, I was driving me nuts when we were watching. I'm like, how do I know this guy? How do I know this guy? And it was Josh Porter. And it's so funny because he looks so young in that run on The Office. And I was like, this guy has not aged at all, because that would have been like 10 years later.
10 years. So he went least.
But, anyway,
Mm.
Big Love, he was also in. And he was also in Nashville with David Burke and The Outer Limits. Dondre T. Whitfield has also been in plenty of things, including Between Brothers, Secret Agent Man, Girlfriends, Hidden Hills, Mistresses, and most recently, Queen Sugar. Lane Davies has been on Lois and Clark, Working, The Practice, General Hospital, Supernatural, and The Bay. And at this point, I'm just like listing credits. So sorry, everyone out there, if this is sounding a little bit, uninteresting. The point is, as we keep establishing, a lot of these actors are super talented and, they often go on to do more things. Christine Estabrook, she's interesting. So she has been working steadily since her time on The Crew. She kind of plays like these sort of battle axe characters. Like, I've seen her play more than one sort of like, antagonistic, sort of like, she's also sort of ageist, or ageless. I feel like she's been playing the same woman for like 20 years. She's guest starred in The Practice, Dharma and Greg, Ally McBeal, Numbers, Nip Tuck. And I remember her most as playing Joan Holloway's mom on Mad Men.
Yeah.
So she was like, they had a very contentious, sort of complicated relationship as mother and daughter. And like, clearly that character is responsible for like all of Joan Holloway's toxic traits. So yeah, interesting, but very a huge talent as well. And it's interesting, like, how certain people and certain performers sort of get pigeonholed into certain roles, like they always play like the smarmy, like, waspy douche, or they always play the battle axe mother, or they always play the, like they're always playing a judge, or they're always playing a doctor. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, the typecasting is real, especially in TV. I don't know if it exists as much for movies, but it's definitely like a thing with TV.
Well, you just write a character and then you go, oh, well, this person did this before, might as well see if we can get them. Oh, we can. Okay, great.
Yeah. And that's all I got.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Right on. Woo!
Yeah.
Do either of you have any leftovers? I don't.
I sure don't.
Let me see.
Put those in the overhead compartment. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything extra. I just made little comments in my notes about the like set design, about how aggressively 90s it was, but we covered it.
Yeah.
So.
I couldn't it was hard to get past the titles.
Yeah,
I was just like, these titles are laying it on.
I was annoyed I had to see them twice.
Yeah. So like, they're like, I guess it's that MTV generation type of thing.
Yeah.
But they had that look that's like, is this a skate video or is this a sitcom, or like what is happening here?
Yeah.
And just like too hip, too painfully hip. All right, well, this was an episode. Might as well check in on Mr. Producer.
Hello, Genuine Class Productions, AT Producer speaking.
Oh, hello, Mr. P. Doing your own reception again?
Yeah, kid, with the writer's strike carrying on as long as it has, we're shutting down the office for a bit, so I let Raleigh have some time off.
Oh, well, I hope they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah, sure.
What about you? How are things in your life?
I gotta say, this is probably the longest break I've had in, well, a while at least. I mean, there are worse things to be than bored, but I am. There's only so many make-your-own brine classes you can take before it starts to get a little...
bitter?
Yeah. So, what are you covering on the show this week?
The Crew?
The Crew. Remind me.
Fox, mid-90s, flight attendants.
Oh, sure. That one didn't exactly have a perfect takeoff, did it?
Ha! It certainly didn't. Did you have any insights into the production?
A little, I didn't really stop by the show very much, but it was one of Mark Cherry's. It was his first creation, huh? I had lunch with the fellow a few times in those days. A bit of a showrunner crew. Mark Cherry had The Crew. Chuck Lorre had just hit it big with Grace Under Fire. Matt Bopp had the Frankie Firefighter Funtime Farce. And I was working on a treatment called Have It Your Way, a romance centered around the torrid affair between Burger King and Dairy Queen. Quite an interesting project. We'd toss some drinks down, throw some ideas around.
Sure. That would have been quite a gathering. I'm sorry, that was the Frankie...
Frankie Firefighter Funtime Farce. It starred none other than the late, great Mick Linsky and Juliana Von Stevens O'Connell.
I don't think I remember that one.
Yeah, it aired late.
Oh.
Real late.
And your Burger King movie?
The studio went in a different direction. Did some work on the existing treatment. Basically the same movie. A few changes here and there. It did pretty big numbers when it opened.
What did they end up calling it?
You've Got Mail. Meg Hanks, emails, less burger mascots. Well, I don't really have all that much to say about this one.
All right. Well, I guess we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
See ya!
So, that's The Crew.
Yeah.
Again, 1995. Not the 2021 show about NASCAR starring Kevin James.
Did that show get canceled?
I don't think any.
I don't know.
It takes a lot to cancel a Kevin James project.
Well, That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Byrne, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeger. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.